The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward into darkness, its walls glowing with soft blue light. Representatives from 300 species sat in curved rows, their varied forms creating a strange rainbow of life. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. At the center platform stood Ambassador Chen Wei, a human woman with gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore Earth's dark blue uniform, and in her hands she held a data tablet that contained information powerful enough to shake the galaxy. Chen had been Earth's representative for 12 years. Before her, 7 other ambassadors had stood in this same spot, presenting humanity's achievements and asking for respect. All of them had been ignored or dismissed. Today would be different. Honored council members, Chen began, her voice steady and clear. I present Earth's quarterly report on our contributions to galactic civilization. A few representatives looked up with mild interest. Most continued their private conversations or reviewed their own documents. This was normal. Human reports were considered routine, boring even. Chen expected this reaction. In the past 3 months, human scientists have developed a new medical nanite that can repair cellular damage from radiation exposure. We have shared this technology freely with all council members. She paused, displaying images of the microscopic machines on the chamber's main screen. These nanites have already saved 17,000 lives across the Krill homeworld after their industrial accident. Counselor Vexthor, a being that looked like a massive praying mantis with purple exoskeleton, made a clicking sound that translated as mild approval. Adequate work for a young species, his translator chip announced. The Krill thanked the council for its assistance. Chen's jaw tightened slightly, but she continued. Human engineers have also redesigned the fusion core specifications used in Class 7 stations. The new design is 40% more efficient and reduces dangerous plasma leakage by 92%. We estimate this will save the council approximately 2 trillion credits annually in maintenance costs. How industrious, said Counselor Janine, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the water worlds. Her tone suggested she was already bored. Chen moved to her final point, the one she had been building toward. Additionally, human agricultural specialists have solved the protein synthesis problem affecting the Andorian grain crops. 14. Colony worlds will now meet their food production targets. Famine has been prevented. She stopped and looked around the chamber. A few nods of acknowledgement. No applause. No real recognition. It was exactly what she expected. Earth now formally requests consideration for a permanent seat on the Security Council. Our contributions over the past 183 years demonstrate our commitment to galactic peace and prosperity. This request had been made 17 times before. Each time it was denied. Counselor Vexthor stood, his tall form casting a shadow across the platform. The Security Council is reserved for elder species who possess the wisdom of ages. Humans are talented, yes. You are excellent technicians and workers, but you lack the philosophical depth required for true leadership. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when your species has matured, we can revisit this discussion. Scattered agreement rippled through the chamber. Some species even chittered or hummed their approval of Vexthor's words. Chen stood very still. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Back on Earth, the decision had already been made by the Global Assembly. They had given her one final chance to appeal to the Council's reason. That appeal had just failed. I see, Chen said quietly. She tapped her tablet, and a new display filled the chamber's screens. Before I respond to Counselor Vexthor's statement, I would like to share some additional information with the Council. Numbers began appearing on every screen. Charts, graphs, statistical analyses that had taken human researchers decades to compile. In the 183 years since Earth joined the Galactic Council, humans have registered 67% of all new technological patents. We have provided 82% of medical breakthroughs. We have led 91% of humanitarian aid missions. We have prevented 14 wars through diplomatic intervention. We have solved 43 extinction-level crises for other species. The chamber grew quieter. Some representatives were actually reading the data now. Human labor maintains 78% of deep space stations. Human programming runs the quantum networks that process galactic financial transactions. Human engineers designed the current FTL relay system that allows instant communication across the galaxy. Human teachers staff 40% of Council educational facilities. Counselor Vexithor waved a clawed hand dismissively. These numbers prove our point. Humans are excellent servants of the Council's vision. Something changed in Chen's expression. The diplomatic mask she had worn for 12 years finally cracked. Not into anger, but into something colder. Resolution. I am not presenting these numbers to boast, Counselor. I am presenting them so the record is clear about what happens next. She touched her tablet one final time. Effective 30 days from this moment, Earth officially withdraws from the Galactic Council. We sever all treaties, agreements, and obligations. Humanity will pursue our own path forward. For 3 full seconds the chamber was absolutely silent. Then chaos erupted. "You cannot be serious," shouted Janine, her translucent body flashing with agitated colors. "This is madness," roared a bear-like creature from the Corvin sector. Counselor Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You would abandon your responsibilities? Your duty to galactic civilization?" Chen smiled, but it was not a warm expression. "What duty, Counselor? The duty to be taken for granted? The duty to solve your problems while being called adequate servants? The duty to watch other species take credit for our innovations?" She closed her tablet with a soft click. "No. That duty ends in 30 days. We will not accept this," Vexthor declared. "We will impose sanctions. We will—" "You will do nothing," Chen interrupted, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Because you need us far more than we need you. You just never bothered to notice." She picked up her documents and began walking toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. "Ambassador Chen," called Counselor Talwin, a reptilian being who had always been more courteous than most. "Surely we can discuss this. There must be room for negotiation." Chen paused at the doorway and looked back. For a moment, her expression softened slightly. "For 183 years, we tried discussion. We tried patience. We tried proving ourselves worthy of respect. Today I learned that some people only understand value after they have lost it. In 30 days you will begin to understand." She walked out, leaving the council chamber in stunned disarray. Behind her, the arguments began immediately. Some species demanded action. Others wanted to send diplomatic missions to Earth. A few suggested military intervention. Counselor Vexthor called for an immediate vote to condemn humanity's actions. But in the back rows, a few representatives said nothing. The Lyrians, known for their empathy and emotional intelligence, exchanged worried glances. The Corthan, whose logical minds could calculate complex probabilities, began running simulations on their portable computers. Both species were reaching the same conclusion. The galaxy had just made a terrible mistake. On Earth, in the Global Assembly Building in Geneva, Director Sarah Okonkwo watched the broadcast of Chen's departure. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth stood in absolute silence. Then slowly someone began to clap. Others joined. Within moments, the entire chamber was filled with thunderous applause. Chen's face appeared on the screen in a live transmission from her shuttle. "It's done," she said simply. Director Okonkwo nodded. "Then we proceed to Phase 2. Recall all human personnel from Council facilities. Begin the systematic shutdown of our external services. And Sarah, activate the defense protocols. We need to be ready for anything." The age of human patience had ended. The age of consequences was about to begin. The first crisis hit on day 5. The Centauri colonies, a cluster of mining settlements near the galactic rim, detected unusual radiation signatures in their primary settlement. Within hours, 300 workers showed symptoms of cellular breakdown. Their skin turned gray, their breathing became labored, and their organs began failing. The local medical staff recognized the signs immediately. It was cascade radiation syndrome, a deadly condition caused by exposure to exotic particles from unstable wormholes. The colony administrator sent an emergency transmission to the Council's Medical Response Center. The message was simple and desperate. Need human medical team immediately. CRS outbreak. Estimated 600 infected by tomorrow. Please respond. The response came 12 hours later. It was not what anyone expected. This is the Terran Medical Corps headquarters. We acknowledge receipt of your distress call. However, Earth is no longer a member of the Galactic Council. Our medical teams are now exclusively assigned to Earth-affiliated colonies and allied nations. We suggest you contact the Council Medical Authority for assistance. Best wishes for your recovery. The colony administrator stared at the message in disbelief. He sent 3 more urgent requests. Each one received the same polite but firm rejection. The Council Medical Authority did send a team, but they arrived 4 days later. By then, 17 people had died, and 300 more were in critical condition. The non-human doctors tried their best, but they lacked the human-designed nanites that could repair cellular damage at the molecular level. The death toll climbed to 43 before the outbreak was finally contained using older, less effective treatments. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans had refused a humanitarian mission. It seemed impossible, contradictory to everything humanity had represented for nearly 2 centuries. But it was only the beginning. On day 7, the Galactic Credit Exchange experienced its first major malfunction. Transactions that normally processed in microseconds began taking minutes, then hours. The exchange relied on quantum computing networks that could handle trillions of simultaneous calculations. These networks had been designed, built, and maintained by human programmers. Now, human technicians were quietly logging off those systems and returning to Earth. Financial markets panicked. Stock values fluctuated wildly. Trading was suspended on 40 major exchanges. Fortunes were lost in minutes. Emergency meetings were called. The Council's technology minister demanded that Earth restore access immediately. Earth's response was delivered by a junior diplomat, not even Ambassador Chen. The quantum network infrastructure is proprietary human technology, licensed to the Council under our membership agreement. That agreement ended 3 days ago. The license is no longer valid. This is extortion. The technology minister screamed during an emergency council session, but legally Earth was correct. The fine print of 200-year-old treaties was suddenly very important. By day 9, the communication problem started. The FTL relay system that allowed instant messages across vast distances began experiencing failures. First, small delays appeared, just a few seconds. Then entire relay stations went dark for hours at a time. Investigation teams discovered that the stations needed maintenance, complex repairs that required understanding of human-designed systems. The human engineers who normally performed this maintenance were gone. They had politely submitted their resignations and booked passage back to Earth. Captain James Rivera stood on the bridge of the UHSV Discovery, one of Earth's deep space exploration vessels. His ship had been recalled from a survey mission near the Outer Veil. Now they were 3 days from Earth, traveling through a region of space that was usually busy with traffic. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," his communications officer announced. "It's a Zephyrin military vessel. They're claiming engine failure and requesting assistance." Rivera frowned. The Zephyron hegemony was an aggressive species known for territorial disputes and military posturing. They had never been friendly to humans. "Ignore it," Rivera said. "We're not council members anymore." "Not our problem." But an hour later, another signal came through. This one was different. "Captain, it's a civilian transport ship. Lyrian Registry. They report critical life support failure. 2,000 passengers, including children." Rivera's jaw clenched. The Lyrians were one of the few species that had always treated humans with respect. He looked at his crew. They all knew what he was thinking. "How far out of our way?" he asked. 6 hours, the navigator replied. Rivera made his decision. Change course. "But this is a personal choice, not official policy. When we get back to Earth, I'll file a full report and accept any consequences." His crew nodded their agreement. Being free from the Council didn't mean abandoning their humanity. The Discovery reached the Lyrian transport ship and found it drifting without power. Rivera's engineering team worked for 4 hours to repair the damaged systems. The Lyrian captain, a gentle being with silver fur and large eyes, thanked them with tears streaming down her face. We heard that Earth had turned away from helping others, she said quietly. I am glad to see this is not true. Rivera shook his head. We haven't turned away from helping. We've turned away from being exploited. There's a difference. Your people always treated us with dignity. We remember that. Back on Earth, news of Rivera's rescue mission caused heated debate. Some politicians argued he had violated the spirit of Earth's withdrawal. Others praised him as a hero. Director Okonkwo settled the matter with a simple statement. Earth will help those who ask with respect. We will not help those who demand with arrogance. Captain Rivera made the right call. Meanwhile, the Council was discovering new problems every day. The food crisis emerged on day 12. Several agricultural worlds reported crop failures. The genetically modified seeds they used, designed by human botanists to thrive in alien soil conditions, were failing to germinate properly. Without human agricultural specialists to diagnose the problem, entire harvests were at risk. The krill, a gentle species of artists and philosophers, faced the worst situation. Their entire planet relied on a carefully balanced biosphere that humans had helped create 20 years earlier. After a natural disaster destroyed their native ecosystem, now that biosphere was showing signs of instability. Plants were dying. Water pH levels were shifting. The krill sent desperate messages to Earth asking for help. Unlike the Centauri colonists, the krill had always been grateful for human assistance. They had created monuments honoring the human scientists who saved their world. They had named parks and schools after human heroes. Earth responded differently to them. We are sending a team of specialists to assist with your biosphere stabilization. This mission is being conducted as a gesture of friendship between our peoples, separate from any council matters. The krill wept with relief and gratitude. The contrast was not lost on other species. Some began to understand. Humanity was not abandoning the galaxy. They were simply done being treated as servants. On day 14, the first conflict broke out. The Zephyron hegemony, emboldened by the Council's obvious disarray, attacked a mining facility in disputed territory. They expected the usual Council response: diplomatic protests, emergency sessions, and maybe some economic sanctions. Instead, the response was chaos. The Council's Military Coordination Center, which relied heavily on human tactical analysis and strategic planning, could not formulate an effective response. Orders were delayed. Ship deployments were uncoordinated. By the time Council forces arrived, the Zephyron had already seized the facility and established defensive positions. It was the first military defeat the Council had suffered in 40 years. In the Council chamber, Councillor Vexthor stood before his peers, his mandibles clicking in agitation. This is Earth's fault. Their abandonment has weakened us. But Councillor Talwyn, the reptilian who had tried to stop Chen from leaving, stood and spoke with unusual force. No, Vexthor. This is our fault. We built a civilization on the backs of a species we refused to respect. We took credit for their innovations. We dismissed their wisdom. And now we are reaping what we sowed. The chamber fell silent. It was the first time anyone had spoken such truth publicly. That night, secret communications were sent from several species to Earth. The Lyrians and the Korthan both requested private meetings to discuss bilateral relations outside the Council framework. They were not apologizing for the Council's behavior, but they were acknowledging that Earth had legitimate grievances. Earth accepted these meetings, not as a path back to the Council, but as the beginning of new, more equal relationships. By day 15, the galaxy was beginning to understand. The civilization they had built was not held together by the Council's wisdom or the elder race's leadership. It was held together by human innovation, human labor, and human patience, and that patience had finally run out. The morning of day 16 brought 3 simultaneous wars. The first erupted in the Helian sector, where 2 species had disputed border claims for decades. Human mediators had always managed to keep tensions from boiling over. Without those mediators, old grievances flared into violence. Warships clashed near a contested moon and casualties mounted quickly. The second war started over trade routes. The Vakari Consortium accused the Plenan Collective of violating shipping agreements. Normally, human trade specialists would review the contracts and find a compromise. Instead, both sides escalated to military action within hours. The third conflict was the most troubling. A religious sect called the True Path declared holy war against the heretical crystalline communion. The Council had maintained peace between these groups for 70 years, through careful diplomatic management led primarily by human negotiators. Now thousands died in terrorist attacks across multiple worlds. Director Sarah Okonkwo watched the reports flooding into Earth's Strategic Command Center. Her face remained calm, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the edge of her desk. "They're tearing themselves apart," her deputy said quietly. "Yes," Okonkwo replied, "and they still don't understand why." The Council held emergency sessions for 3 days straight. Arguments echoed through the Great Chamber as species blamed each other for the expanding chaos. Some accused the Zephyron of taking advantage of the crisis. Others claimed that Earth had deliberately sabotaged galactic infrastructure before leaving. A few tried to suggest that the wars would have happened anyway. Councillor Vexthor called for a vote to declare Earth a hostile entity and authorize economic sanctions. The vote failed, but only barely. 30% of council members supported it. The galaxy was fracturing. On day 19, the food situation became critical. The crop failures that began as isolated incidents had spread to 14 agricultural worlds. Billions of beings faced food shortages. The Council's emergency food reserves, managed by human logistics experts, were now inaccessible because no one else understood the inventory systems. The Andorian colonies, which fed much of the inner sectors, sent a desperate transmission directly to Earth's global assembly. Unlike the arrogant demands of the Council, this message was humble and direct. "We are starving. We do not demand your help. We ask if there is any way we might purchase agricultural assistance. We can pay in raw materials, cultural artifacts, or labor. Please, our children are hungry." Earth's response was carefully crafted by a committee that included farmers, ethicists, and diplomats. "We will send agricultural specialists to assist with your crop crisis. Payment is not necessary. However, we ask that you publicly acknowledge that this assistance comes from Earth as an independent nation, not as a council action." The Andorians agreed immediately. When human specialists arrived, they were greeted as saviors. The contrast with the council's neglect was stark and deliberate. Other agricultural worlds watched and learned. Within days, 7 more colonies sent similar requests directly to Earth, bypassing the council entirely. Each time Earth helped, and each time, the species publicly thanked humanity while implicitly criticizing the Council's failure to respond. The political implications were enormous. The Council was losing legitimacy with every passing day. Meanwhile, the infrastructure problems cascaded into new crises. On day 21, 3 deep space stations reported critical system failures. These stations housed tens of thousands of residents and served as crucial waypoints for interstellar travel. Human engineers had designed fail-safes and redundancies into these stations, but they had also been the ones maintaining them. The Council sent their best non-human engineers to assess the problems. After 2 days of analysis, the head engineer sent a blunt report. "These systems are beyond our expertise. They incorporate human design philosophies and problem-solving approaches that we do not fully understand. We can perform basic repairs, but we cannot guarantee long-term stability. We need human assistance." The Council faced an impossible choice. They could evacuate the stations, which would cripple galactic commerce. They could risk catastrophic failures that might kill thousands. Or they could beg Earth for help. Pride prevented them from choosing the third option. For now. The evacuations began on day 23. Watching hundreds of thousands of people flee their homes because the Council was too stubborn to ask for help created powerful images that spread across every news network in the galaxy. Public opinion began shifting dramatically. The Zephyron hegemony, meanwhile, was growing bolder. After their initial success, they launched attacks on 2 more Council territories. Their military commanders had analyzed the situation correctly. The Council's forces were disorganized and ineffective without human strategic coordination. On day 25, Zephyron warships appeared in the Outer Rim sector and attacked a Council supply convoy. They destroyed 12 cargo vessels and captured 3 more. It was the boldest act of aggression seen in decades. The Council military command tried to respond, but their counterattack was poorly coordinated. Ships arrived at the battle site hours apart instead of as a unified fleet. The Zephyron forces, though smaller in number, fought with better tactics and defeated the Council forces decisively. It was a humiliation that the Council could not hide. Captain Rivera, who had just delivered supplies to the Lyrian worlds, watched the battle reports with his senior officers. "They're fighting like amateurs," his tactical officer observed. "No coordination, no adaptive strategy. It's like watching people who learned warfare from textbooks but never actually understood it." Rivera nodded grimly. "That's because humans wrote those textbooks and then implemented the strategies for them. They never had to learn how to actually do it themselves." On Earth, the debates intensified. Some politicians argued that humanity had a moral obligation to help stop the Zephyron aggression. Others insisted that the Council needed to learn this lesson, no matter how painful. Director Okonkwo addressed the Global Assembly with characteristic bluntness. "We are not responsible for the Council's military failures. For 183 years, we provided strategic planning, tactical analysis, and coordination services. We did this while being called adequate technicians. Now they face the consequences of their dependence. If they want our help, they know how to ask." But the Council did not ask. Pride, that ancient enemy of wisdom, prevented them. On day 27, an unexpected transmission reached Earth from the Krill homeworld. It was not a request for help, but an invitation. "We wish to establish a formal alliance with Earth, separate from the Galactic Council. We offer friendship, mutual defense, and cultural exchange. We have learned that true partnership requires respect, and we hope to demonstrate that we understand this principle." It was the first formal alliance offer Earth had received since leaving the Council. After careful consideration, Earth accepted. The symbolism was powerful. The Krill, a species that humanity had saved from extinction, were now standing beside Earth as equals. The message to the rest of the galaxy was clear. This is what respectful partnership looks like. Within 3 days, the Lyrians and Korthan sent similar proposals. They wanted bilateral agreements with Earth independent of the Council. They acknowledged past mistakes and proposed new frameworks based on mutual respect. A journalist named Kickstar, a Korthan with a reputation for fearless reporting, began investigating the history of human contributions to galactic civilization. What he discovered shocked even him. For decades, Council records had systematically downplayed or erased human contributions. Innovations created by human scientists were credited to Council research teams. Diplomatic successes achieved by human negotiators were attributed to Council wisdom. Military victories won through human strategy were celebrated as proof of the elder race's leadership. It was a comprehensive campaign of historical revisionism that had lasted for generations. Kickstar published his findings in a massive report titled "The Human Question: How the Galaxy Built Itself on Stolen Ingenuity." The report went viral across every networked world. Within hours, protests erupted on dozens of Council member worlds. Citizens demanded answers. Why had they been lied to? Why had humanity's contributions been hidden? The protests grew violent on some worlds. On the Vakari homeworld, thousands of citizens surrounded the planetary government building, demanding that their leaders resign for their role in suppressing the truth. Similar demonstrations occurred on 12 other worlds. The Council chamber became a battlefield of accusations. Species blamed each other for the deception. Some claimed they had been deceived too. Others admitted they had known but said nothing. Councillor Vexthor, who had always been the most dismissive of humanity, found himself at the center of the storm. Evidence emerged that his office had deliberately altered historical records to minimize human achievements. Calls for his resignation echoed through the chamber. "I did what was necessary to maintain proper order," Vexthor declared, his voice transmitted across the galaxy. "The elder races must lead. To give humans too much credit would undermine the natural hierarchy of wisdom." His words meant as a defense became his condemnation. They revealed the ugly truth that many had suspected but few had dared to speak. The Council's treatment of humanity was not accidental neglect, but deliberate policy. The economic collapse was total and merciless. By day 35, the galactic credit had lost 40% of its value. Financial institutions that had operated for centuries began failing. The sophisticated trading algorithms, all designed by human programmers, became unstable without proper maintenance. Markets that once processed quadrillions of transactions per day now struggled with basic exchanges. Entire species faced bankruptcy. The Mervantian Banking Consortium, which had financed galactic commerce for 300 years, announced it could no longer guarantee deposits. Panic spread. Citizens across hundreds of worlds withdrew their savings, only to discover that the quantum verification systems did not work properly anymore. Money simply vanished into digital limbo. The Council tried to fix the economic systems using their own experts, but they quickly discovered a troubling truth. Human programmers had not deliberately sabotaged anything. They had simply built systems so sophisticated, so elegant, and so complex that no one else fully understood how they worked. It was like asking a child to repair a starship engine using only a picture for reference. On the Corvin homeworld, massive protests turned into riots. Citizens burned effigies of council leaders. The planetary government, fearing complete collapse, sent a secret communication directly to Earth. We were wrong. Our leaders were wrong. We wish to withdraw from the Council and seek individual partnership with Earth. Please respond. Earth's reply was carefully neutral. We are willing to discuss bilateral relations with any species that approaches us with respect. However, we will not be rushed into agreements. Trust must be earned, and that takes time. It was a diplomatic way of saying that Earth would not be manipulated by desperation. They had learned that lesson well during their Council membership. By day 40, 7 species had officially withdrawn from the Galactic Council to pursue independent relationships with Earth. The Council, which had once united 300 civilizations, was fracturing into pieces. Emergency sessions became daily occurrences, but they accomplished nothing except more arguments and blame. The military situation grew worse. The Zephron hegemony, sensing the Council's weakness, launched their most ambitious offensive yet. A fleet of 200 warships attacked the Virillion system, a wealthy core world that housed 30 billion civilians. The Council's military commanders tried to mount a defense, but their forces were scattered and uncoordinated. The Battle of Virillion lasted 3 days. Council forces outnumbered the Zephron 2-1, but they lost anyway. Their ships fought as individuals rather than as a unified fleet. Their tactics were predictable and inflexible. Their responses to Zephron maneuvers were always too slow, too late, too confused. The Zephron victory was devastating. Virillion fell under occupation. 30 billion people suddenly lived under military rule imposed by an aggressive foreign power. Images of Zephron soldiers patrolling the streets of Virillion's capital city spread across every news network in the galaxy. The Council had proven itself incapable of defending its own core territories. The Council chamber. The atmosphere was poisonous with fear and rage. Councillor Janine, the floating jellyfish being who had once dismissed human contributions as boring, now spoke with desperation in her voice. We must ask Earth for military assistance. We have no choice. Never, Vexthor shouted, his mandibles clicking furiously. We will not beg the humans. We will rebuild our own capabilities. With what? Demanded Telwyn, the reptilian counselor. With what knowledge? With what time? The Zephron are advancing. Our economy is collapsing and our people are starving. Your pride is killing us all. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some counselors supported Telwyn. Others stood with Vexthor. A few simply sat in stunned silence, paralyzed by the magnitude of the disaster. A proposal was made. Send a military strike force to Earth and force them to comply with Council demands. The proposal was insane, suicidal even, but 14 counselors voted for it before cooler heads prevailed. The vote failed, but the fact that it happened at all revealed the depth of the Council's panic. On Earth, intelligence services monitored everything. Director Okonkwo watched the Council debates with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. They're on the edge, she told her staff. Some of them are desperate enough to do something truly stupid. Should we increase our defensive posture? Her military advisor asked. Already done, Okonkwo replied. Every orbital defense platform is active. Every ship is ready. If they're foolish enough to attack us, they'll learn why humanity has been holding back for 2 centuries. But Earth's preparations went beyond military defense. Unknown to the Council, humanity had been planning for this moment for 40 years. Ever since Ambassador Chen's predecessor had warned that Council membership might become untenable, Earth had been quietly securing independence. Human colonies had been established in remote sectors, far from Council influence. Trade agreements had been secretly negotiated with non-Council species. Technology that humanity had shared with the Council was now understood to be only a fraction of what humans had actually developed. The best innovations, the most advanced designs, had been kept secret. Earth had learned from history. Never again would they be dependent on others for survival. On day 43, journalist Kickstar published a follow-up to his explosive original report. This one was titled The Architecture of Dependence: How the Council Designed Humanity's Exploitation. It detailed how, over nearly 2 centuries, the Council had systematically structured galactic civilization to maximize human labor, while minimizing human influence. The report revealed something that shocked many readers. The Council had deliberately prevented humans from forming alliances with other species. They had blocked human companies from competing in certain markets. They had established regulations that made it difficult for human culture to spread beyond Earth's colonies. All of this was designed to keep humanity useful but contained, productive but powerless. It was not conspiracy theory. Kickstar had leaked documents from Council archives that proved every claim. The protests intensified. On 18 worlds, citizens demanded that their governments apologize to Earth and seek independent relationships. On 6 worlds, governments actually fell, replaced by leaders who promised to fix the relationship with humanity. But the most dramatic change occurred among the younger species, those who had joined the Council after Earth. They began asking dangerous questions. If humanity had been exploited despite their contributions, what about us? Are we being used the same way? Who else has been building galactic civilization while the elder races take credit? The Council's legitimacy, already damaged, began to completely crumble. On day 45, something unexpected happened. Captain Rivera's ship, the UHSV Discovery, detected a distress signal from a Council hospital ship near the frontier expanse. The ship carried 3,000 patients, mostly civilians injured in the various conflicts tearing the galaxy apart. Their life support systems were failing, and they were too far from any Council facility to reach help in time. Rivera's orders from Earth were clear: provide humanitarian assistance when it does not compromise Earth's security or interests. This situation fell into a gray area. The hospital ship was not asking for military help, just basic life support repairs. Rivera called a meeting with his senior staff. "I know the official policy," he said, "but I also know who we are. 3,000 people are going to die if someone doesn't help them. What do we do?" His officers voted unanimously: help them. The Discovery reached the hospital ship 4 hours later. Human engineers worked through the night to repair the failing systems. They shared medical supplies. They even transported the most critical patients to the Discovery's own medical bay for treatment. The hospital ship's captain, a Doranian with long flowing tentacles, wept when Rivera refused payment. "Why?" the captain asked. "Why help us when the Council treated you so badly?" Rivera's answer was simple: "Because we're still human. That means something." News of the rescue spread quickly. It created a powerful narrative that complicated the story playing out across the galaxy. Yes, Earth had withdrawn from the Council. Yes, they had let the Council suffer the consequences of their dependence. But no, humanity had not lost their compassion. They still helped those who needed it. They just refused to be exploited while doing so. The distinction was important. It meant that reconciliation might be possible if the Council could swallow their pride and approach Earth with genuine respect. On day 47, the Zephyron hegemony announced their next target, the Vexthor homeworld. The proclamation was delivered with deliberate mockery. "The elder races are weak. Their wisdom is worthless. We will demonstrate this by conquering the homeworld of their greatest counselor." It was a direct challenge not just to Vexthor, but to everything the Council claimed to represent. If the elder races were truly superior, let them prove it by defending themselves. The Council military command tried to organize a defense fleet, but their best commanders had resigned in frustration. Their supply lines were disrupted by the economic chaos. The Zephyron fleet appeared at the edge of the Vexthor system on day 53. 300 warships, the largest invasion force assembled in a generation, moved toward the homeworld with deliberate menace. They were broadcasting their advance on all channels, making sure the entire galaxy watched the Council's humiliation. Counselor Vexthor stood in the Council chamber, watching the tactical displays. Around him, the other counselors sat in silence. They had tried everything to mount an effective defense. It had all failed. The fleet guarding his homeworld numbered 400 ships, but everyone knew numbers meant nothing without proper coordination and tactics. The battle would be a massacre. Not of the defenders, but of his people. The Zephyron would bombard population centers to break resistance. Billions would die. Vexthor's mandibles trembled. He was about to do something he had never done in his 300 years of life. He was about to abandon his pride completely. "I am going to Earth," he announced quietly. The chamber went silent. Even those counselors who had been demanding Earth's help looked shocked. Vexthor himself, the most vocal opponent of humanity, was going to beg. "You cannot," Janine said gently. "The humiliation would be too great." "The humiliation is already complete," Vexthor replied. His voice carried a weight of sadness that surprised everyone who heard it. "I humiliated myself through arrogance. I humiliated this council through blind pride. What remains is only the question of whether I will compound that humiliation by letting my people die because I am too stubborn to admit I was wrong." He left the chamber without waiting for a response. Vexthor's ship arrived at Earth 38 hours later. He had sent no advance notice, made no formal request for a meeting. He simply came, hoping that humanity would at least see him. Ambassador Chen received the notification of his arrival with carefully controlled expression. She had expected this moment, but she had not expected it to come from Vexthor himself. She consulted with Director Okonkwo and the Global Assembly's leadership. After 2 hours of discussion, they made their decision. Vexthor was escorted into Earth's diplomatic facility in Geneva, but he was not taken to a conference room or shown any particular courtesy. Instead, he was asked to wait in the reception area. The same reception area where Chen had waited 8 hours during her first diplomatic mission to the Council, over 70 years ago. Vexthor understood immediately. He had made Chen wait as a display of his superiority. Now she was returning the gesture. It was justice, pure and simple. He waited. 1 hour, 2, 4, 6, 8. Human staff walked past him, going about their business. Some glanced at him curiously. Others ignored him entirely. No one offered him refreshment or comfort. He simply waited, understanding that this was part of the price he must pay. After exactly 8 hours, Chen entered the reception area. She looked older than Vexthor remembered, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "Counselor Vexthor," she said formally, "what brings you to Earth?" Vexthor stood, his tall form seeming somehow diminished. "I come to ask for help." "No, that is not correct. I come to beg for help. My homeworld is about to be invaded. My people are in danger. The Council cannot protect them. I have nowhere else to turn." Chen's expression did not change. "You once told me that humans were adequate technicians but lacked the wisdom for true leadership. Do you still believe this?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Vexthor could lie or deflect or try to minimize his past words, but he understood that this was not the time for diplomatic evasion. This was the time for truth. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I was profoundly, completely, catastrophically wrong. I let pride blind me to reality. I let ancient prejudices prevent me from seeing the value of what humanity contributed. I dismissed your people because acknowledging your worth would have threatened my own sense of superiority." He paused, his translator chip carrying the emotion in his voice. "I was a fool. I am still a fool. But I am a fool who is begging you not to let my people pay for my foolishness." Chen remained silent for a long moment. "Earth will not return to the Council under the old system," she said. "Not now, not ever. If we help you, it will not be because we are servants of the Council's vision. It will not be because we accept our place as adequate technicians. Do you understand this?" "Yes," Vexthor replied. "Will you acknowledge this publicly? Will you tell the entire galaxy that the Council was wrong, that humanity was wronged, that the structure of galactic civilization must change?" Vexthor did not hesitate. "Yes, I will say all of this and more. I will resign from the Council if that is what you require. I will spend the rest of my life making amends if that will save my people." Chen studied him carefully, looking for any sign of deception or reservation. She found none. Whatever Vexthor had been before, he was broken now. Not in spirit, but in arrogance. Sometimes that was what growth looked like. "Earth will help defend your homeworld," Chen said finally. But in exchange, the Council will accept complete restructuring. No more elder races. No more hierarchy of wisdom. Every species will have proportional representation based on population and contribution. There will be public apologies and reparations for humanity's treatment. And there will be accountability for those who deliberately suppressed our contributions. Done, Vexthor said immediately. I will advocate for all of it. I will vote for all of it. And if the Council refuses, I will personally withdraw my homeworld from the Council and seek bilateral relations with Earth. Chen nodded slowly. Then we have an agreement. Earth's fleet will deploy immediately. The human response was faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours, a fleet of 80 human warships emerged from FTL near the Vexthor homeworld. They were not the largest ships anyone had seen, not the most heavily armed by raw numbers. But there was something different about them, something that made veteran military observers take notice. They moved with perfect coordination. Their formations were fluid and precise. Their communication was instant and clear. And most importantly, they moved with confidence. Captain Rivera commanded the Vanguard Squadron. He studied the tactical display, watching the Zephron fleet positioning itself for planetary bombardment. His orders were clear. Stop the invasion, minimize casualties on all sides if possible, but protect the civilians at all costs. All ships, this is Rivera. Execute tactical pattern Delta 7. Show them what real coordination looks like. The human fleet moved as one entity. While the Zephron ships operated as individual units working together, the human ships functioned as a single distributed organism. Every captain knew what every other captain was doing. Every tactical decision was made with instant information sharing. It was warfare as art, as science, as a form of cooperation so advanced it appeared almost telepathic. The Zephron commander watched the human fleet deploy and felt his first flutter of concern. He outnumbered the humans nearly 4-1. But those formations, that coordination, that precision, he had never seen anything like it. Engage the human fleet, he ordered. Destroy them quickly so we can proceed with the invasion. The Zephron fleet attacked with their usual aggressive tactics. They relied on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers. It had always worked before. It did not work against humanity. The human ships moved through the Zephron formations like water flowing around stones. They were never where the enemy weapons aimed. They concentrated fire on key targets, disabling ships rather than destroying them when possible. They used the Zephron fleet's own mass and momentum against it, creating traffic jams and friendly fire situations. Within 2 hours, the Zephron fleet was in complete disarray. 20 ships had been disabled. 15 more had collided with each other, trying to pursue human vessels. The commander's orders were being ignored because his subordinates could not execute them fast enough to matter. Captain Rivera had not lost a single ship. Zephron Fleet Commander, Rivera transmitted on all frequencies. You are defeated. Your invasion has failed. You can either surrender now, or we can continue this demonstration of the difference between quantity and quality. Your choice. The Zephron commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet, the mighty force that had terrorized the Council for weeks, had been neutralized by a much smaller human force in less than a day. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was undeniable. We surrender, he said quietly. Across the galaxy, billions watched the Battle of Vexthor Prime. They saw human ships dancing through enemy formations with impossible grace. They saw tactics so sophisticated they seemed like magic. They saw proof of something the Council had hidden for 2 centuries. Humanity was not just adequate technicians. They were masters of organized violence when necessary. More importantly, they saw humanity's restraint. The humans could have destroyed the Zephron fleet. Instead, they disabled it. They could have exacted revenge for weeks of Council suffering. Instead, they accepted surrender and treated prisoners with dignity. It was a demonstration of power and mercy combined. It was profoundly intimidating and strangely reassuring at the same time. In the Council chamber, councilors watched in stunned silence. Some felt relief. Others felt shame. A few felt fear as they realized just how much humanity had been holding back all these years.